Hello, YouTubers, and welcome to Level-Headed News. This is your host, Brenda. I have 5 articles for you in this episode this morning, and all the URLs are in the description of this video for your convenience. The first one here is off of Natural News, and it says, NHS doctors, nurses say government-run healthcare is a dismal failure that puts lives at risk. Doctors and nurses are warning that the nation's government-run healthcare system is in such bad shape that many patients' lives are being put at risk. A group of leading doctors from the Royal College of Physicians, or the RCP, have sent a letter to Prime Minister Theresa May saying that the NHS will fail without immediate extra funding and that patient care will continue to deteriorate throughout this winter. And already described as the worst ever in terms of A&E waiting times and hospital bed shortages. President Professor Jane DeCray told the BBC, "Our members tell me that it is the worst it has ever been in terms of patients coming in during a 24-hour period and numbers of patients coming in when there are no beds to put. Our members fear that the patients' lives are at risk because they can't get around to see patients who aren't in the emergency and accident department or are waiting for results to come back." Meanwhile, members of the Royal College of Nursing, the RCN, expressed serious concerns regarding the level of care they are able to give amidst the worst conditions they've ever experienced. One trauma center nurse reported, "Today I ran our major treatment area. Patients were waiting more than 12 hours for beds. My staff were broken and distressed. By the end of the day, you could see their care-worn, exhausted faces feeling like they failed. But really, it's the government that has failed." British politicians have the humanitarian crisis exists regarding healthcare while doing their best to play down the seriousness of the issue and shifting the blame back onto physicians. And accused of scapegoating GPs and attempting to distract the public from the real causes of the crisis. But warnings from within the medical community continue to increase in urgency as accounts of actual patient deaths due to long waiting times and understaffing become more commonplace. That surfaced just as the RCP and RCN warnings were issued revealed that this year the NHS is all too real. Nearly a quarter of all A&E patients were forced to wait at least 4 hours before being seen, and those who were admitted to the hospital after seeing A&E staff were also typically subjected to long waits before being assigned to bed. During the course of 1 week, nearly 500 British patients waited more than 12 hours on trolleys or in hallways before being given a bed, and endured trolley waits of 4 hours or more. In some hospitals, there have been reports of wait times approaching 24 hours. In light of all this, it would not seem In light of all of this, it would not seem an understatement to label the situation a humanitarian crisis. After all, and one which is likely to worsen before it can improve. Theresa May's government claims it has given the NHS enough money, but the RCP disagrees, saying an immediate bailout can address the problem, not promises of future funding to a system that is underfunded, underdoctored, and overstretched. The British healthcare system, like that of the United States, is struggling to cope with an aging problem and a spiraling demand for its services. Of course, much of the looming healthcare crisis, both in the United States and Britain, could be averted by implementing natural health principles which prevent most diseases rather than merely treating the symptoms. Until such an approach is adopted, we can expect our healthcare systems to continue to fail and put millions of lives at risk. That I have for you is also off of Natural News, and it says farmers and conservation groups suing the EPA for approving Monsanto's Xtendimax pesticide. Farmer and environmental groups has filed lawsuit against the EPA for failing to follow the law approving Monsanto's newest herbicide, Xtendimax. Active ingredient is dicambia. for spraying directly on new generation of genetically modified crops. The plaintiffs in the suit are the Center for Biological Diversity, Center for Food Safety, National Family Farm Coalition, and the Pesticide Action Network. Federal regulators have abandoned the interests of farmers and environment for public health. Or try that again, and public health. Federal regulators have abandoned the interests of farmers, the environment, and public health, plaintiffs' counsel George Kimbrell said. We won't allow our food to be dragged backward into pesticide-soaked nightmare, not without a hell of a fight. The approval is expected to lead to a tenfold increase in the amount of dicamba sprayed. This will not even offset the use of other chemicals. The new herbicide is approved for bean and cotton crops genetically engineered to resist both dicamba and glyphosate or Roundup. Thus, spraying the Roundup will continue. Dicamba has been linked with cancer and birth defects, while glyphosate is classified by the World Health Organization as a probable carcinogen. Both have been shown to have devastating effects on wildlife and to contaminate water supplies. Dicamba in particular is known to drift from the fields where it is sprayed. Even prior to the latest approval, farmers in 10 states had already reported damage to thousands of acres of crops from dicamba use. In fall of 2016, a farmer was shot dead in dispute with another farmer over dicamba drift. The lawsuit notes that although the EPA noted that increased dicamba use would place dozens of endangered species at risk, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, which oversees endangered species, before issuing its decision. Once again, the EPA is allowing staggering increases in pesticide use that will undoubtedly harm our nation's most imperiled plants and animals. Donnelly of the Center for Biological Diversity. Iconic like endangered whooping cranes are known to visit soybean fields, and now they'll be exposed to this toxic herbicide at levels they've never seen before. For dicamba use is to fight new generation of superweeds that have evolved resistance to Roundup, but scientists that it was the use of Roundup-resistant GMO crops and an explosion in Roundup use that led to the evolution of the superweeds in the first place. In 2016 study by the National Academy of Sciences noted the evolution in superweeds as one of many ways that the GMOs had failed to keep their promises to farmers rather than reducing costs as promised. The evolution superweeds that have now overrun large tracts of farmland, rendering them unusable and costing farmers enormously. The study noted that GMOs also increase rather than decreasing use of the herbicides and other, and that they have not increased farmers' yields, nor has there been sufficient research into the crop's safety for health or for the environment, the study concluded. The whole systems of genetic engineering threats plant and animal health, said Margot McClellan of the National Family Farm Coalition. Because of the cross-pollination, the original non-GMO and wild weed genomes are fast disappearing. While the fight against weeds requires more and more, these new crops and their unintended consequences are predictable and avoidable, but the safe and healthy alternative offered by sustainable and organic agriculture has been ignored. Experts warn that increased dicamba use will merely lead to the evolution of still tougher superweeds. So the EPA plans to decrease this risk, but all are useless, as they fail to place any limits on dicamba use and leave almost all implementation and enforcement decisions up to Monsanto. Monsanto's dicamba-resistant crop system will drive up sales of this outdated pesticide, spur more superweeds, and damage vulnerable crops, said Marcia Ishii-Itaman, the PhD Penn senior scientist. If Trump's administration wants to serve farmers, it will invest in healthy, long-lasting solutions to farmers' needs, not pander to corporate greed. Okay. Farming used to be the backbone of this nation. America used to feed the entire world. We have countries that will not accept our exports of grain because it's full of GMOs. We need to get rid of the GMOs and stop poisoning our food supply and start feeding the world again. If he wants to make America great, that would certainly be a good start. They don't put me in charge of anything. The next one we have here is off of naturalnews.com, and it says to arrive at test stores this month. Grocer names remain secretive. Of course they are. February 2017 marks the introduction of genetically modified apples into the U.S. stores, sadly. Golden Delicious apple will be the first to be test marketed at 10 Midwest locations. Oregonian Supply Fruits is producing the latest frankenfood, but more apple varieties are soon to follow. The FDA has approved Okanagan's, I guess that is Okanagan's GMO Granny and full Fuji varieties, and approval for the Gala is expected in 2018. Exactly which stores will get the new apples is not being disclosed to the public for reasons that aren't clear. Well, I think I know what they are. If Okanagan has nothing to hide, why not just disclose the information in an announcement? The apples will carry the name Arctic of this, then you could just be ingesting yet another unlabeled GMO. Anyone who has ever eaten an apple knows that they will start to brown within moments of flesh being exposed to air. Browning is due to the presence of the enzyme oxidase, which causes apples to oxidize. But the Arctic apple appears medically tinkered with, and this enzyme has been limited by a gene silencing technique, and that is the hook for consumers who demand perfection in the appearance of the produce they eat. When sliced, this new creation will not brown for 3 weeks. This frankenfood will come pre-sliced and wrapped in plastic just the way nature intended. GMO industry, shameful legacy of ill effects. Responsible Technology .org lists important reasons to avoid GMOs. Number 1, studies on animals given GMO feed show organ damage, gastrointestinal and immune system disorders, accelerated aging, ability. GMOs cross-pollinate, and the contamination is permanent, threatening future generations. Genetically modified crops are altered to tolerate herbicides, so GM foods contain more dangerous chemicals such as Roundup, which has been linked to birth defects, infertility, and cancer. Can cause unintended consequences such as new toxin, allergens, carcinogens, and nutritional deficiencies. Perhaps the most telling is that when given a choice, animals avoid eating GMO foods. These include rats, squirrels, chickens, buffalo, deer, raccoons, geese, and elk. PhD plant biologist Jonathan Latham writes, I wasn't at the outset concerned about possible effects of GM plants on human health or the environment. We hardly imagined that GMOs like ours would be grown or eaten. So as far as I was concerned, all GMOs were for research purposes only. The commercial purpose of GMOs is not to feed the world or improve farming. Rather, they exist to gain intelligent property over seeds and plant breeding, and to drive agriculture in the directions that benefits agribusiness. This drive is occurring at the expense of farmers, consumers, world. Many countries around the world have banned GMOs, yet sadly, the U.S. leads the world in production of these insidious poisons. The problem is that when you alter a plant's DNA to produce a desirable trait, no one knows health. The science of genetic tampering is to uninformed to predict the unintended consequences that will result because it's beyond the grasp of science to know. If enough Americans become informed on the roulette game being played out with our health and our very lives, the power of the marketplace will prevail and we can eradicate the menace of GMOs. The very idea that foods can be marketed without labeling GMO ingredients is a red flag. Why the secrecy if the food is safe? Consumers refuse to purchase GMO foods and they are no longer profitable. This despicable technology will cease. And that's exactly why they're not telling you which stores are carrying these GMO apples. Because if enough consumers refuse to purchase the GMO foods, they are no longer profitable. So greed strikes again. The next one I thought I'd bring out for a little fun. This is off of space.com, and it says, why we should send Bill Gates to Mars. Was originally published at the Conversation. The publication contributed to space.com's expert voices, op-ed, and insights. Bill Gates, along with a few of his billionaire friends, has launched a U.S. $1 billion fund to support research into technologies that will help us address climate change. The idea behind breakthrough energy ventures is to provide funding for basic energy research, which may otherwise get left behind in the incoming U.S. President Donald Trump decides to cut support for such programs. The fund will target 55 activities across 5 general categories, including electricity, transport, agriculture, manufacturing, and buildings. You want to pull it up to see that. And it says it's a nice idea, but unfortunately, most of these activities incremental improvements in reducing global carbon emissions is incapable of making any significant progress on climate change. But while watching one of the episodes of National Geographic's series Mars one night, I had an epiphany. It dawned on me that everything we need to do to overcome the challenges associated with creating a human colony on Mars by 2035 could also come focus of breakthrough energy ventures. The key challenges, and it jumped on me, hang on. The key challenges for a successful Mars colony. Dog, it didn't jump on me again. All right. One more time. The key challenges for a successful Mars colony involve generating water and shelter on a hyper-sustainable and cost-effective basis. But these key challenges for the rest of us on Earth between now and 2035. So I want to send Bill Gates, or at least his thinking about energy technology, to Mars. Incremental changes won't work. To sustain even today's global human population of 7.4 billion people, not including the projected 2 billion who will join us between now and 2050, it will require to our existing energy, water, food, and transport systems. The improvements in these systems required to deliver sufficient goods and services to approximately 8.4 billion people in 2035 are order of magnitude needed to support a much smaller colony on Mars by the same year, but equate to and productivity upgrades of between 10 and 1,000 times better than anything that exists at the commercial scale today. Enormous investments we are currently making in energy, water, food, and transport systems only lead to incremental improvements that will not allow us to achieve Mars levels of efficiency and productivity on any meaningful timescale. This is because most of the world's investment money chases risk-adjusted short-term basis. This leads to a disproportionate amount of investment info. For example, improvements in of internal combustion vehicles. While this generates sufficient returns for institutional investors, including pension funds, these efficiency improvements are nowhere near the levels that we will need to meet our exponentially increasing targets on Earth, nor the levels required to support human life on Mars. The type of thinking that leads to Mars level improvement is Hyperloop Alpha proposal originally put Elon Musk, who incidentally also wants to colonize Mars, and now being developed by two business groups. In 2013, Musk made an observation that investing in high-speed train line between Los Angeles and San Francisco would be a tremendous waste of time, capital, and resources, as it would be obsolete by the time it was operational in 10 to 20 years. He pointed out that given the level of investment, time, and resource requirement to build a high-speed rail system, designers should instead shift their beliefs again, shift their brief improvements in speed, safety, and cost. Propose a vacuum tube transport system that would take people from Los Angeles to San Francisco in 35 minutes, cost than making the same journey today. This is Mars level thinking in action, and the type of infrastructure project that serves as the foundation for a more prosperous future. History. Improvements to our energy, food, water, and transport systems needs to look like by 2035. In the stationary energy sector, we need to move from centralized fossil fuel plants to distributed renewable energy with storage so that we can make and use clean energy close to where it is needed. Transport in large urban centers needs to shift to electricity with batteries in cars, homes, schools, and office buildings. Food systems need to be shifted away from plants with high water and other input requirements, such as rice, corn, higher levels of photosynthetic productivity requirements such as quinoa. Food that converts high-value plant inputs into lower-value animal protein should be phased out quickly. Rapid shift away from cows, which consume huge amounts of plant matter and water and generate outputs. At levels equal to what we will need on Mars, the key material, including copper, iron, and phosphorus, need to be fully recycled and equally important deployed products and services. The market allows too many of these high-value materials to be used for frivolous purposes, for example, on video game consoles, and ultimately wasted. Products need to be redesigned so that manufacturers can reclaim them at the end of their useful life, can be upcycled into even higher value products. That all of our key support systems now operate at levels of efficiency and productivity as well as or well below what is required to support even today's human population, much less 2 million additional people on the way in the next few decades. Is that the opportunity to develop new technologies, business models, and integrated systems is the largest in history. U.S. President John F. Kennedy inspired us to go to the moon. Mr. Gates, it's time to forget about moonshots and start looking at Mars as the next giant leap for mankind. And the final article that I have for you, if anybody has a kitty cat, you might be interested in this. It's off of Natural News. It says 20 canned cat food products from popular brands recalled due to dangerously low levels of nutrients. Now, where if you have a pet, you almost have to check the recall list before you go buy pet food. So much recall being done on all this stuff. This one says 3 separate brands of cat food manufactured by J.M. Smucker Company have been recalled after tests discovered that they were dangerously low in an essential nutrient, the company announced in conjunction with the FDA. Cat food has been recalled from specific varieties and lots of brands, 9 Lives, and lots of the brands, 9 Lives, Ever Pet, and Special Kitty. The cat food was sold between December the 20th and January the 3rd and should not be fed to animals. Cats eating the defective food could start to develop gastrointestinal and neurological abnormalities within a few weeks. The FDA said it has not received any reports of animals made ill from the nutrient-deficient food. The company declined to reveal how much of the defective cat food has been sold. May cause seizures. According to the company, a routine review of product or production records revealed that thiamine, vitamin B1, had not been added to the affected lots of cat food. Failure to fortify the food with thiamine means that the food is deficient in this essential nutrient. According to the FDA, cats fed a thiamine-poor diet can develop deficiency within a few weeks. Early symptoms are typically gastrointestinal in nature and include decreased appetite, weight loss, excessive salivation, and vomiting. In more advanced cases, neurological symptoms start to manifest, such as bending of the neck toward the floor, wobbly walking, circling, falling, and seizures. The FDA warned that any cats exhibiting these symptoms should be seen by a vet immediately. With quick intervention, thiamine deficiency and its symptoms can be fully reversible. The recalled products are listed in this article, and it's a big long list of them. 9 lives, just 9 lives meaty everything. Chicken and tuna, seafood platter, super supper, chicken and seafood, chicken and tuna, chicken dinner, liver and chicken, ocean whitefish, poultry pack, mixed grill by Everpet. Special Kitty has liver dinner, tuna dinner, mixed grill, and super supper, and all the lots are listed. And it's just a whole load of them here. So if you feed any of that stuff, you need to check this list out and make sure you got the right thing. It says customers who have purchased recalled products should contact the company directly at 1-800-828-9980 or consumer.relations@jsmucker.com. Do you really want to feed your pet that? The recall raises the question, of course, why does failure to fortify cat food with thiamine result in food that gives cats thiamine deficiency? The answer is easy, because the actual food ingredient contained in the cat food are nutrients poor and terrible for your pet's health. For example, meat and poultry byproducts are 2 of the major ingredients in the 9 Lives products recalled. This can include any animal matter, including parts of food animals not approved for human consumption, or even ground up zoo animals, roadkill, or euthanized pets. Meat from these different sources is typically tossed together into large grinders, sometimes even along with expired meat from grocery store shelves, along with plastic and styrofoam packaging. There are almost no rules to enforcing the contents of pet food, along with ground up and euthanized animals. Cat food from big brands almost certainly contain antibiotics, hormones, and even euthanized chemicals. Consult a reliable vet for recommendations on brands of pet food made from real ingredients with minimal additives. So there's that information for you. So now you know something else you didn't know before. If you like what I'm doing here, give it a thumbs up. Let me know. Be sure and share it on your social media so everybody gets to hear the news. And don't forget to subscribe so you stay informed. Have a great day.